Happy Force Friday, a few hours early, and welcome to Geeks with Wives and Capes, episode number 107. And from the Hollywood foothills of North Carolina, I'm your host tonight, filling in for the great and legendary Will. I am Brad Bell. And thank you already. From the host.
Hold on now, he has a sound effect ready to go.
Yeah, I have a sound effect, but real applause is always appreciated. And joining me tonight is our editor-in-chief from Geeks and Wives, the comics kid, the original bad boy of comics, Mr. Casey Walsh. Casey, how are you doing this evening?
In brightest day and blackest night, I'm ready to kick some ass tonight. Let's do it.
Nice.
And it's good to be back on with you, Casey, because I know we've kind of been on rotating schedules, so I missed you. I listened to your Frank Barbary interview talking about the Howling Commandos the other week, so it's good to be back on the program with you.
That was my third time interviewing Frank, so I kind of think we're like friends now. So it's become second nature. So yeah, after 3 times you get the hang of it.
Yeah, third time was the charm. So hopefully we're a little bit better with our guest tonight on the first try, so he'll come back 2 more times. But I want to introduce our other co-host for this evening, joining us for the first time since episode 100, and OG Geek with Wob, Natalie Atkins. How are you doing this evening, Natalie?
Hey, I'm so glad that I could be here. Thanks for having me.
And we're very glad to have you back. So thanks for joining us on this very special episode. We have a lot of great writers on here from time to time. We've had the likes of Scott Snyder. We've had, as mentioned, Frank Barbary. A long list of great comic book writers, both from the big 2 and from independent publishers. But tonight we are pleased to welcome the current writer of Flash and Green Lantern from DC Comics, who originally started out with Top Shelf, Mr. Robert Venditti.
Hello, thanks for having me on. I noticed you only gave yourself the sound effect for yourself and not the other 2 hosts, but...
Hold on, Robert. That's for Natalie. That's for Will. Casey.
Yeah.
That's for Will at Force
Oh my
Friday.
gosh. Fired.
I'm sorry.
Last time you ever host.
I guess I've letting the hosting gig go to my head. I'm only giving myself a round of applause. So
where's that Southern hospitality I always hear about, Brad? Come on now.
Yeah, I know.
Southern man, son.
I'm a little too tired for the Southern hospitality. I only can do that from like 8 to 4 p.m. with 3 cups of coffee. Then I become ill. Just ask my wife. But it's good to have you on tonight with us, Robert. You and I were fortunate enough to cross paths at Heroes Con in Charlotte, North Carolina this past summer. You were there representing DC. Y'all were rolling out the new DCU, YOU publishing initiative. So I just want to ask you, how did you feel about Heroes Con? It's a very comic-centric con. It's kind of more laid back. So compared to other cons, how was Heroes Con for you?
Yeah, I mean, I've been going to Heroes Con ever since I started in comics. I think the first year I went was 2002, and the only year I ever missed was last year just because I had a scheduling conflict. So I always enjoy going there. I'm in Atlanta, so Charlotte isn't too far away. It's nice to drive to the show. I've been seeing the same fans there and made a lot of friends there over the years because when I started going to Heroes Con originally, I was working for Top Shelf, which is a publisher, so I would run their booth for them and sell books and all that kind of stuff. So it's always great to go. Shelton runs a really good show. It's a real good sort of after con hangout vibe that happens there, where everybody kind of goes to the same hotels, bars, and hangs out, and a lot of good restaurants downtown. So I always enjoy going there.
Yeah, Shelton's a great guy. We had him on a couple weeks ago, and he just has such a passion for those comics and for putting on a very comic-centric convention. He kind of keeps the Hollywood out of it. So I would describe it as a very pure con. What's your favorite place to eat in Charlotte when you make it up here?
Man, this year, it's weird. Like a lot of the places, I don't even know what they're called. I just walk into them because I was there one year. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I did go to eat at this one place called Blue this year. That was awesome. I really liked that. And then there was a barbecue place that we walked to from the from the West End that was good, and then there's like a little diner right over the bridge. You can like
Yeah.
walk over. What's a diner called? You know
There
that?
used to be one called the Penguin. Now there's the Diamond. That's actually near Shelton Shop, but the
Yeah,
Penguin
no,
is
this
closed
diamond is
down.
like if you leave the West End and take a left, I think it is, and you walk over the overpass, it's right there.
I'm
So
not familiar with it.
it's pretty
Are,
good too, though. Yeah.
so
So
if you're ever in Charlotte, go across the bridge from the Westin and eat at that diner.
yeah. Don't ever listen to me as far as directions. I get lost in my own neighborhood. So ask the guy downstairs who works at the hotel. They'll point you in the right direction.
That's how conventions are, though. You go to a city and you're like, oh, it's that place that's on that one corner we walk by on like Thursdays.
Yeah.
Let's go there, with the cheeseburgers.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, it's always what has the shortest line and least amount of people, and I can get a drink.
That's also pretty good about Charlotte. Is there's like a million restaurants, so you can find one. It's not like there's just 2 or 3 places to eat. So there's not usually long waits or nothing that I've ever experienced.
It's a good to get a break from that convention food. That's for sure. So
yeah, I don't ever eat in the convention halls. I remember a long time ago. I think there was a point in time where Heroes Con didn't even have food in the convention hall.
yeah, for a long time, and then they actually started serving beer, which I think was a mistake because I would bring along my brother who had no interest in comics, so he needed entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, that didn't go too well, but that's a story for a different podcast.
This sounds like a new podcast: diners, comics, and conventions.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe like a kind of after hours where we tell our most risque convention tales. I'm sure that would get some high ratings. But you mentioned, Robert, working for Top Shelf, and I believe they are in Atlanta, right? Top Shelf is.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where you got your start. And I attended the panel you did at Heroes Con on behalf of Geeks with Wives, and your journey into comics was an awesome one because it's the very kind of common man's approach. Will you tell our listeners kind of your origin story into the industry?
Yeah, sure. I didn't start reading comics until I was about 27 years old. I didn't read them growing up at all. I was in grad school for creative writing, getting my master's in fiction writing, and I had always wanted to be a writer, but I'd never read comics. And there was a buddy of mine that I was working at Borders while I was in grad school. I worked for Borders about 10 years. He kept trying to get me to read comics. I never really wanted to do it. And finally, he told me about this one storyline that sounded really interesting to me. So I went and I picked it up and I read it. And it was Astro City Volume 2, Number 4, which was the very first issue of the Confession story arc. And so I read that and I really liked it, and then I went and I read the rest of Astro City, and I started reading some other things, and I decided I wanted to try to write comics. Around about that time, I moved up to Atlanta while I was finishing up my thesis for grad school. I didn't really know how to get into it. I mean, I don't know anything about how to find an artist. I didn't know how to do a comic book script or anything like that. You go to the bookstore now, there's a section on how to write comics like that. That really wasn't there, back in 2000, 2002, and all that kind of stuff. So,
you can Google it now, Robert. You don't even have to go to a bookstore.
Yeah.
What was the look on your master's professor's faces when you told them you're going to be a comic book writer?
No, I mean, they didn't really. I don't even know if I ever told them. I mean, I still had to turn in my thesis, which was a fiction thesis, and one of the stories in my thesis actually got published in a Berkeley Fiction Review. So, they were happy about all that kind of stuff. I would be surprised if my parents and probably my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, weren't probably like, you want to do what now? Like, you've been going to school all this time to write fiction, and all of a sudden you want to write comics? You don't even read them, But,
well, Robert, the reaction when I told my graduate professors when I graduated with a history degree, a master's in history, that I wanted to use it to teach high school history, this was their response. So I can kind of relate, but go ahead, Robert.
Anything on board, Brad?
So yeah, I was looking to get into the industry, and Top Shelf was located here in Atlanta, and so through various circumstances that would be really long to get into, I ended up volunteering to pack boxes in their warehouse. So to manage the warehouse, ship out all their web orders, pack boxes for direct orders from retailers, things like that. They ended up keeping me on and hiring me as Top Shelf's first ever full-time employee. actually first ever employee ever. Up until that point, it was just the two owners of the company that never hired anybody. And while I was working for them, I wrote the script for my first comic book, which was called The Surrogates. And I gave that to the guy who I knew at Top Shelf, Chris Staros, who was their editor and one of the owners. And I was like, look, I know this isn't the kind of stuff you normally publish, because they do, more like black and white autobio comics, things like that. I said, but if you think this is good enough, maybe you can introduce me to a publisher that would be interested in this kind of material. And he ended up reading it and liking it himself, and so he published it. And that ended up being my first book, and through a bunch of circumstances that maybe we'll get into at some point, and if we don't, it doesn't matter, but it ended up getting adapted into a film. And so that really kind of helped me have a resume piece to get more work as a writer,
What was that kind of moment like whenever you made that jump from working in the shipping room pretty much and packing boxes and managing orders for Top Shelf to the Surrogates taking off? Was there ever a moment where you were like, okay, I've made it now. I'm not going back behind the scenes. I'm a legit comics writer.
No. Actually, interestingly enough, I went to the premiere of The Surrogates with my wife, and we walked on the red carpet and all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
And 2 days later, I was in the warehouse packing boxes at Top Shelf again. Because to me, like, I never wanted to have a career where I had to take a gig to pay the bills or to, buy groceries or fix my car or whatever. Like, I always wanted to approach my career in a way that I knew everything was taken care of, which is what my job at Top Shelf did. It paid me the money I needed to cover my bills, and the writing was secondary to that, until I got to a point where I had enough work from writing, and I felt confident enough that now I could not work and I could just write full time. And because I did it that way, I didn't, the Surrogates, sure, that happened and that was great, and there was a little influx of cash there for a little while. But if I had just left my job and gone and did that, that would have disappeared really quickly, and I would have been scrambling looking for work so I could pay the bills again. I didn't ever want to have to do that. Every project I've done because I wanted to do it, because I felt like it challenged me or I was interested in it or what have you. And I don't have a single project that I'm hiding from. Like, I'm not the most prolific writer in the world. I haven't done 100 different things, but all the ones that I have done, I'm super proud of, and I got no skeletons in my closet as far as projects go.
Robert, was that a weird or difficult transition for you to go from having a full-time job and writing on the side for fun into doing what you really loved doing as a full-time job?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm married. I've got 2 kids, and I've had a job with a paycheck that I knew was going to come every Friday or every other Friday ever since I was 13 years old. So to me, to leave that and to go to a situation where, literally month to month anything can change because it's a monthly industry, was a big adjustment. You don't really feel like there's that security there that you have. Fortunately, my wife is, she has the health insurance. We don't have to worry about that. So those kinds of things are covered. But I really made sure I had all my ducks in a row as far as, not having any debts and having emergency money set aside and those kinds of things. I know this is probably boring as we talk about financial or whatever, but
this is relatable to us, Robert. So
if you're trying to get a career in the arts, there's not a lot of security. So as much as you can have those kind of ducks in a row ahead of time, it'll give you some peace of mind for those sorts of things. But yeah, it took me a little while to get used to, but I feel real fortunate that I've been able to stay where I'm at for a bit now.
Robert, I think. Oh, go ahead.
I think it's nice to hear, because I think there's a lot of people who are in the shoes you used to be in, holding down a full-time job, doing something they love on the side, and hoping that something comes of it so they can go to a position where you are in now.
Yeah, I mean, for about, I don't know exactly how long it was, but I want to say it was well over a year, maybe even 2 years. I worked a full-time job at Borders, working 4 9-hour shifts in 4 days. And then my 3 days off, I worked about 10 hours a day in Top Shelf's warehouse. And then while I was doing both of those things, I was writing The Surrogates and trying to get my writing career up and going. So, there's no shame in any of that. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of people who would come by to conventions and say, well, how'd you get your start? And I started out in the warehouse, and they just kind of glaze over like, I don't pack boxes, I'm an artist, And it's like, okay, well, come back next year and let me know how that's working out for you, because you got to find a way to get into the business somehow, you know what I mean? And my way was to do it through a warehouse. But it isn't like you apply for a job, like you're going to go work at a bank or whatever. You have to be creative as far as how you're going to get in.
But I also think your way shows something that's not really a value to a lot of kids nowadays, and that's just the idea of like having to work hard. Like I think a lot of people. I think
First of all, you look like you're like 21. So like, I don't know how old you actually are.
31. 31.
Okay,
I wish I was 21. But well, I have to hire a lot of college students. Like that's part of my job is hiring college students, and they have this very like entitled ideal a lot of the times, and I tell them a lot of times too, like I worked for free the first 5 years of my life just to be able to get to do what I wanted to do, to get paid a little tiny bit, let alone like make actual living off of it. So like you have to have like this idea of like working hard and then moving up. Like I think it's something that people should very take away from your story, because that's what you worked hard and you did what you wanted to do, and you put yourself out there, and you had a master's degree in creative writing. Like I think a lot of people with a master's degree coming out of college don't think they have to go and pack boxes for a living to get where they want to be at. So I think that's a good story to kind of take away from, is the fact that like the ideal of working hard it means a lot still to this day. Like like even if you have a master's degree or we're in college for 10 years or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, and the interesting thing is like I didn't even mind it. Like I'm sure working in a warehouse sounds miserable to a lot of people, but I don't know. I always liked having a job. I was one of the people when I was in high school. I had a job, and a lot of my friends didn't. Because their parents, bought them a car or gave them allowance or whatever. Like, I always had a job. I met so many interesting people at all those jobs, and I mean, I could talk to you for 12 hours and tell you stories about all these crazy people I worked with, and restaurants or, at the mall or whatever. You talk to a bunch of my friends now, I'm still good buddies with all those guys. Like, they don't remember what party they went to on that Friday night, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I think work is... it's fun. It can be fun.
And that becomes like your second family, because you spend almost as much time with those people as you do your family when you're with them 40 hours a week. And sometimes that's a blessing, and sometimes it's a curse. But it can work either way. But you mentioned the Surrogates, and that's kind of where I wanted to start talking with you about your comics career, because that's kind of where it really got going for you. With the Surrogates, I read the comic way back when I was in high school, Robert. So it's been a while, and I saw the film when it came out, and I think it was '09, and did the comic come out around '05 or so? So
yeah, the first issue, Surrogates #1, came out in July of 2005. So my career is about 10 years old at this point.
Okay, well, happy 10th anniversary.
Yeah, thanks. It actually debuted. It came out the week before San Diego Comic-Con in 2005, and then the full completed trade paperback came out at Comic-Con in 2006.
Well, that book in a lot of ways, I think, was in the film as well, was ahead of its time, because it kind of provided this commentary on technology kind of playing maybe too much of a prevalent role in your life. And nowadays, we're having things like Oculus Rift, and people are on their phones all the time. And back in '05, cell phones, the idea of everybody kind of having them and interacting with technology like every day, I mean, sure, most of the population did, but it wasn't as mainstream as it was now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to remember, honestly. 2002, were there smartphones yet? I don't know.
No.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
There wasn't
maybe.
Facebook. There was no Facebook, and there was no Second Life. There was that game Second Life where people would go in and assume these identities and whatever. There was none of that. So.
Yeah, it sounds like someone owes you some royalty money.
Yeah.
Robert.
Nah. I mean, I think Second Life was around probably by the time the book was published. But Top Shelf bought it from me in 2002, and it took about 2.5 years for it to actually come out. 3 years for it to actually come out. Yeah.
So today that may be a easier book to write, but what kind of inspired you then to kind of provide that technological commentary?
Well, when I was in grad school, we read a book called The Cyber Gypsies, for a class I took that was called Literature of the Internet. Doesn't that sound like a grad school class? And
Yes.
this was a nonfiction book by a writer named Indra Sinha, and it was about people who were addicted to, I can't remember the name of the game, but it was like a text-based game, where you type like you're entering into a room or whatever, that kind of stuff. Like there was a game when I was real little that I don't think any of you guys are ever going to hear of called Zork.
Zork, I was gonna say, is it Zork?
Yeah, well, no, it wasn't Zork, but it was that kind of game. But anyhow, in the book, this guy who was writing it, as a journalist studying these people, there were people that would create these characters for themselves, and they would get divorced, and they would lose their jobs, or one guy's character got killed and he killed himself. And so it just struck me, this idea that technology and the internet would allow you to create an entirely fictional persona for yourself that you could identify with so much, but the limitation of that would be that at some point you got to put the computer down to take your kids to school or go buy groceries or do whatever. You have to go out back into the real world and be yourself. So my idea was, what if there was a technology where the persona that you created and crafted however you liked actually could go out into the world and do all those things for you? What would society be like in that environment? And in what ways would it break expectations, and what ways would it uphold expectations? For example, if there's somebody who's trying to hire a butler, some really rich guy trying to hire a butler, and you want to apply for that job, well, maybe you need to go get yourself a surrogate that looks like Alfred so you can be that person's butler, even though you're like a 20-year-old dude, because you want a good paying job, So in some ways that technology would, eliminate sort of racial and gender distinctions, but in other ways it might force us to almost reinforce them, because you would want maybe an airline pilot to be a man and an airline steward to be a woman, or whatever those stereotypes are. So it was just the idea of trying to explore that and take that one little single item and change it, and then think about how it would affect all the rest of culture.
Well, it was definitely ahead of its time, and when they optioned it for a film, you talked about being on the red carpet 1 minute and back in the warehouse the next. So what was it like when you got that phone call that your first really big comic is being optioned? Like, what ran through your head at that moment, Robert?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like it doesn't happen like a lightning bolt. I mean, it certainly could, but in my instance, like when I wrote the original script and all there was the 5-issue script, part of the reason why it took 2.5 years is because the script ended up getting a lot of interest in Hollywood and going around to a lot of producers, and we just kind of waited to see what happened with it. Nothing ever happened with it. So then when the first issue came out, there was a lot of interest again, and I literally went to Comic-Con. It was my first year ever at Comic-Con. I think it was my first year. It might have been my second year. I was setting up the booth for Top Shelf, and I had just unpacked all the boxes on Tuesday and Wednesday, and setting it up and getting ready to open, and like take the sheets off the table, and here we go, we're opening, and like right out of the gate, producers were coming up to the table and were asking about the Surrogates, not even knowing it was my book. Just like, what is this book called, The Surrogates? I heard about it on this website, I read about it in this magazine, and we're really interested in it. And I was like, what is going on? Like, how do these people even know about this? You know what I'm saying? And so there was like a real flurry of activity in the month or two after that, where all these super A-list producers were each at their own studios, and they were all going to pitch it, and they were all going to make $1 million, sale or whatever. Nothing ever happened from any of it. So the third time around, when the book was finally out, there was a producer who reached out to me. You being a sports guy, Brad, you'll appreciate this. This would have been March of, March of 2007, I believe. Actually, no, it was March of 2006. It was just before the full edition had come out, but all the issues, I think, were pretty much out, or at least they were done. We had them on disc. There was a producer who reached out to me. His name was Max Handelman, and he's the husband of Elizabeth Banks. And so the most recent movie that they've done is they've done the 2 Pitch Perfect movies. And their production company is called Brownstone Productions. So he called me up and said, I've heard about your book. I've read the 3 issues that are out. I'm really interested in it. And he just sounded like a good guy. He wasn't like all Hollywood go. He had never made a movie before. He had never, he was just hanging up his shingle with Brownstone's Productions. But it was in the middle of March Madness, and we started talking a lot about college basketball because I went to University of Florida. This was the year that the Gators were making their run towards the title, when they had Joakim Noah and Al Horford and all those guys. And so we talked about college basketball for like 20 minutes, and things like that. It's like, man, this guy just sounds like a regular guy. And like, agents and other people were telling me, don't go with this guy. He's got no experience. He's never done anything. And I was like, but I just came out of a warehouse packing boxes, and I've never done anything. So how am I going to look at this dude and judge him because he's never done anything?
Yeah.
This is the guy I want to go with. And he was the guy that ended up getting the movie made. So
Man, that's awesome. It kind of came full circle there.
yeah, just a bunch of really fortuitous stuff that happened, But anyhow, to answer your question, it wasn't like it happened overnight. It was a bunch of fits and starts. Now, when I thought the movie was actually going to get made for real, that was kind of a lightning bolt because I got a call at like I don't know, it was like 7 in the morning here in Atlanta, and it was Max, which means it was 4 or whatever his time. And I was like, man, either something's really good or something's really bad, because what's he calling me at 4 in the morning for? And he called me because he wanted me to hear it from him before I read about it in Variety that they had cast Bruce Willis to be the lead. And so that came out of nowhere, and I was like, whoa, this thing might actually go now, And it did, it ended up getting made. So.
Robert, let's hold on, Brad. So we don't got much time, and I need to fast forward because I have to talk about Green Lantern. So, Robert, what was that feeling like getting the call about Surrogates compared to getting the call about Green Lantern?
I don't know, totally different. I mean, both good, obviously, and both very positive. But yeah, it was great when they reached out to me about writing Green Lantern. I mean, all I'd really done for DC at that point, I had been doing X-O Man of War for Valiant. I had just really kind of started it, and I want to say I was maybe, I don't know, 7 or 8 issues into X-O Man of War, which was the first monthly comic book series I ever did. And off of that, even before X-O Man of War came out, DC had read the Surrogates, and they had read Homeland Directive, and they had reached out to me about working on this book called Demon Knights to do after Paul Cornell, who was the original writer, was leaving. And so I was already working on Demon Knights. I don't even know if any of the issues were out yet, though. And they reached out to me about Green Lantern just to pitch on it, not to give it to me, to pitch on it. And I didn't really expect that I would get it, I mean, I liked my pitch and everything, but obviously I'm figuring there's a lot of people in the running for that. So when they told me that I did get it, I was obviously very happy, but also a bit nervous. It's a huge challenge to follow up somebody like Jeff on a 10-year run like that. And
yeah.
For a lot of people, the only Green Lantern they've ever read is Jeff Johns' Green Lantern.
Well, yeah, that was me, and I was very scared.
Yeah, but I mean, that was part of the. That was honestly part of the appeal to me. Like with every project I take on, I want to do something that gets me outside my comfort zone and something that scares me a little, because I think that's when you challenge yourself, and whether you succeed or fail at it, at least you improve by challenging yourself, as opposed to just doing safe stuff all the time. And I think you would just get stagnant then. So there's been risk, I think, in just about everything that I've taken on.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot. All right, so X-O Man of War and Green Lantern, both kind of spacefaring police types. Which one do you kind of prefer writing?
Well, they're very different, and that's why I like them both, and same with Flash as well. Like, I think I wouldn't want to write 2 characters that were the same. You know what I'm saying? That's what I mean about not wanting to get in a rut and just kind of do the same stuff. There's things I love about both of them. What I like about X-O Man of War is this real sort of historical mashup aspect of him that you really can't get in a lot of characters, where he's a 5th century Visigoth in the modern day and a sci-fi suit of armor. Like, that's like a whole lot of genres coming together, which is really cool. The thing I like about Hal Jordan is, I've always been somebody, as you could probably get a sense from the conversation, we talk about having a job and going back in the warehouse after the movie and things like that. Like, I'm not the kind of person who is real spontaneous or doesn't think things through a lot, you know what I'm saying? And I love the idea of a character like Hal who just goes with his gut. I don't know, there's something really admirable about that. And some of my best friends have that kind of approach to life, and I really admire them for that as well. So there's things to like about both of them.
I have to say something for when our entertainment editor Everett is a huge X-O fan, and he told me to tell you, if you kill off Eric, he's gonna probably crawl into a fetal position and cry for weeks on end.
If I killed off Eric, I think Valiant would probably kill me. So tell him I don't think he has to worry about that.
Okay. Cool.
But I mean, that's the whole challenge of monthly comics with these established characters, right? You have to find a way to put them in danger, even though the audience knows for the most part they're not going to die.
I think he was worried because he saw that I had the preview for Book of Death, Exo Man of War coming up this weekend. So he had a panic attack for a second.
Well, I mean, that
had
stuff
to
is all
message me.
set in the very far future, you know. So yeah.
So, Robert, for a sports analogy, if Jeff Johns is Joe Montana, you're Steve Young with Green Lantern. All right, you've come in and done a great job. And
I hate the 49ers, but okay.
I was going to say, Brad, what if he's not a 49er fan? You may have just picked yourself in a very bad corner.
I mean, I grew up in that era where the NFC won like 43 million Super Bowls in a row. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like the 49ers were a huge chunk of that, and I was just like, I just can't take it anymore. You know?
Hey,
it's like the Lakers.
Hate them too.
You know?
They beat the Panthers in the playoffs 2 years ago, so I hate them too. I can't stand Colin Kaepernick. But like always, this isn't a sports podcast. Talk about, since we've kind of jumped forward to DC now for time's sake, talk about the process of writing Hal Jordan versus writing Barry Allen, because two completely different dynamics. Hal's brash, cocky, kind of goes with his gut. Barry's the sweetest guy in the world. He's compassionate and almost to a fault sometimes.
Brad's Hal and I'm Barry. Right? Is that how
No, it's the opposite. I would definitely be Barry, and you would be Hal, for sure.
Okay.
Why can't Natalie be Barry? You know, why can't she be Hal? You know?
She's
I'm
both.
kind of a mix of the two.
Yeah.
She's Clark.
Oh, she's Clark.
Clark.
I don't know. I mean, I guess the process is the same, really. You know, with anything you write, you just you try to get inside the characters' heads and honestly ask yourself how they would react in a given scenario based on who they've historically been and who they are currently in the book that you're writing. So I don't know that it's really all that different. I mean, obviously the stories that come out are different and the ways that you're going to challenge them are different. But for as far as like process or outlining or actually getting down and scripting, it's really not that different. I mean, I do try to work on one thing at a time. You know, like this week I'm working on an issue of Exo Man of War. Last week I wrote an issue of Green Lantern. Over the weekend I wrote, my half of the next issue of Flash. And so I try not to like bounce back and forth between them all at the same time, so you don't go nuts trying to get in three different heads all at once. So I just try to get myself in the zone and move forward on stuff.
Now with Flash, I have a question. Do you write Flash solo, or you have a writing partner with Flash? Is that right? Is it Jensen?
I do, yeah. My really good friend Van Jensen, he lives here in Atlanta as well. We co-write Flash together, and we have ever since I came onto the book. He's done some other things. I just thought it would be a fun thing for us to work together on something because we're real good buddies. We're real similar in the way that we approach story, but we also edit each other pretty hard when we write the stories. So we divide each issue, pretty much in half, 10 pages each. He's a former crime reporter. He was the lead crime reporter for the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette when he was real young. So he's able to bring a real authenticity to a character like Iris West, or even into the CSI crime lab aspects of the story. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. We get together about once a month and hang out at a bar, and eat and drink, and figure out Flash stories. So I don't know. It's a pretty decent way to make a living.
How happy are you guys that CW show's a hit? Whew, man.
Yeah, I mean, we came onto the book before that, and I don't know. It's kind of hard to say what kind of impact those things are going to have. But it's nice to be on the book at a time when the character's so much in the public eye. You see a lot of people in Flash shirts walking around and stuff like that, and it's I don't know. You always get a little kick out of it, knowing that I write that book. So it's definitely fun.
How do you feel about, and I know this is kind of putting you on the spot because you're an employee of the great DC of Warner Brothers, which I love. I'm an admitted DC guy, Robert. I'm not just saying that because you're on here. Like, these guys know I kind of lean more toward DC.
No, I mean, even for myself, I didn't grow up reading comics, like I said, until I was about 27, but what I knew about the superheroes and the comic book characters were the things that everybody knew from like general pop culture knowledge. So for me, growing up, like Superman was it, because I used to see those Superman movies in the theaters, and I was at just the right age when Superman 2, like when he came out of the particle chamber, and I thought he lost his powers, he takes a knee before Zod. My little kid head was like, "What is the world gonna do?" Superman just lost his powers, So I've always been real fond of DC's characters. But anyways,
What would your little kid self have said when if he snapped his neck?
No.
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, that probably would have been a rated R movie back then, and I wouldn't have been able to see it. You know.
What would your little kid self think of what you're doing now?
Well, I think that I was writing stories even in elementary school. You know, again, not comics or drawing, but I was writing stories. I always knew I wanted to be a writer, so I think that my little kid self would probably be, you know, pretty happy that I ended up doing it, and I am too. I mean, it's a pretty rare thing in life that you get to know even at a young age this is the one thing I want to do, and you grow up and you get to actually do that. And no matter what happens from here on out, I've done what I've done, and nobody can take that stuff away from me. So.
That's for sure. Now, you're not getting out of here that easy. I got to finish my tough question. Okay. How do you feel about the DCU, the YOU, that new publishing initiative? Does it free you up? Does it make it easier to write Flash and Green Lantern because you're not beholden to so much continuity? Or do you kind of feel the pressure of fanboys and fangirls getting upset because you maybe tweak something?
Well, there's two different ways to answer that question. I'll answer them both. In terms of the wider DCU, like a lot of the books that they've put out, you know, what they've done with Batgirl, Omega Men, Midnighter, Prez, you know, a lot of this stuff. I think they're just great books, and I'm enjoying reading them. You know, I read all that stuff every month, and so.
Isn't Midnighter the best?
I'm sorry?
Isn't Midnighter the best?
Yeah, Midnighter's great. Yeah, I'd never read any Steve Orlando stuff before that book, but man, he sure does write good dialogue. You know.
Yeah, he's gonna be on the show in a couple of weeks, and we were like, all of our editors are just fighting over who gets to be on because they just love the Midnighter book so much. Yeah,
that's great. So I love the variety and the diversity of the new titles. You know, Cyborg, all that stuff. So. That's great. Now, as far as for me specifically being a writer working within the DCU as opposed to a reader, yeah, you know, when I was hired to write Green Lantern, I was hired under the idea of they wanted me to come up with storylines that would tie books together, and they wanted there to be a tight continuity between all the Green Lantern books. So, for example, they wanted a crossover right when I started, and so I concepted out Lights Out, and I created that character Relic, and Relic was originally going to be in from my first issue of Green Lantern. He was going to be in it, but they thought he would fit better to maybe launch a new direction of New Guardians, with Kyle being sort of on this space quest with the New Guardians and those kinds of things. And so Relic, even though it was a character that I created, was in another issue, another couple of issues of another comic before it appeared on my own. And so a lot of the ideas that I came up with went to those other books. Now with the DCU, they told us, you know, everything is kind of standing on its own, and we do have a larger plan in place. And I think if you read all the titles, they all kind of support each other in ways, but it isn't, you know, crossover heavy. So it is nice to be able to kind of stand alone and do your own stories as well. You know?
Yeah, it's refreshing. Yeah, Relic showed up in number 43. I get my comics kind of at the end of the month. Being a teacher, that's when we get paid in North Carolina. So I just read it. It was good. I like that cover, so it's good stuff. And it was hard, I know, to follow up that Jeff Johns run, but just the look that he's had, the redesign with the gauntlet.
I love the redesign.
That's cool. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because that was all stuff that I knew I wanted to do, and I knew that Hal was heading in that direction even before Lights Out, you know, was just over. Like, I knew this is what we were going to do with Hal. It was all approved, and this was always the long game thing that I knew that he was going to kind of take the blame. Originally, the Corps was going to be chasing him. The Corps wasn't going to be in Lost Army, and they weren't going to be disappeared, but things kind of shifted around in that regard. But so when they came around with DCU and they said they wanted new directions for a lot of the books, I already had a plan in place that fit with that. I just had to kind of shift things around a little bit in terms of getting to issue 40, or you know, the exact issue number might have changed, but the general, you know, thrust of the series was always heading where it is now. So.
When you start running for a new character, and you kind of brought this up with Green Lantern, but how much research do you have to do and go back and read previous issues and previous storylines before you feel comfortable enough to pick it up?
A lot. You know, like, for example, when Valiant called me about pitching for them, I remember my first conversation with who's now their editor-in-chief, Warren Simons. I said, look, I'm going to be totally upfront with you. Not only have I never heard of any of those characters you just said, I've never heard of Valiant. Like, I don't even know what that is, because they had already come and gone before I started reading comics around 2000. So with Green Lantern, you know, if I'm putting the pitch together, I'll do like, you know, I'll read enough issues to where I think I have a sense of the character and the concepts and things like that. But between a pitch getting approved and me actually writing a book, like, I think I'd read the entire Jeff Johns run plus some other stuff before I ever wrote the first issue, and by now I've probably read 300-400 issues of Green Lantern and Green Lantern related stuff. You know, I've read every issue of X-Men Man of War that was ever published before I started writing that. That was a lot easier. There was only like 72 of them. You know? But so yeah, I try to. I don't know a lot of the continuities coming in, and I hope that helps give me, for better or for worse, a perspective that's going to be different than somebody else who's been reading a character their whole lives. But before I sit down and actually start writing, I go and I read up on all that stuff to get familiar with the continuities, you know.
Oh, that's fun homework. That's fun background work for sure. Getting to read some Green Lantern.
Yeah.
That's not a bad gig, Robert. But we know you were kind of pushed tonight, and we wanted to have you on early, and we appreciate you joining us tonight, Robert. So if you got to run, we'll let you bow out. Can you tell the good people where we can find more of you, Robert?
Sure. Twitter's probably the best spot. It's I'm just at Robert Venditti. I've also got a website, robertvenditti.com, where you can see what I've got coming up as far as releases and things like that. Let's see, where am I going to be? I'm going to go to Baltimore Comic-Con. I'm going to be at New York Comic-Con. And then I think the next show I'll be at after that will be Emerald City. So
I heard that's an awesome con. I've never been, but I've heard.
I've never been. Yeah, I've never been north of Los Angeles on the West Coast. So I'm looking forward to going and checking it out.
Are you gonna come back to Heroes Con next year, Robert? You said you've been here pretty much every year. So.
Yeah, I mean, my plan would be right now. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen between now and then. Who knows? You know what I mean? But yeah, right now my plan would be.
Have you back. I will message Shelton. Please bring Robert back. Because
oh no, I mean, I go every year. Shelton knows that. He's always treated me real good. I know Shelton. I know Shelton from when I used to pack boxes at Top Shelf and mail them to him. So yeah, I mean, that's no problem. Yeah, my intention would definitely be to go. So.
Well, that's great. Well, Robert, I hope this isn't the last time we have you on. I hope it's just the first. So thank you very much. And you come from very humble beginnings, and I like how you kind of keep a level head and stay grounded despite where you're at working for one of the big two now. I think that's cool, and I encourage you, keep that spirit, man. Keep it.
I'll try, man, but it's hard because I'm so awesome.
I know.
It's like sometimes I just think, man, I'm really awesome, but then
as you should.
You just don't want to end up like Casey, because when his wives started to take off, he kind of got the big head, and it's just miserable.
You know what I mean?
But I appreciate it, guys. I appreciate you having me on, and I'm happy to come on anytime. You all know how to get in touch with me. Just reach out. I'd be happy to do it. So.
Okay, hopefully we can have you on sometime around Heroes Con. That would be cool. That would be really cool. Yeah. So,
sounds good.
Robert, have a good rest of the year, and we will keep picking up Green Lantern and The Flash. And what else are you writing right now?
I write X-Men Man of War for Valiant. Right now, Valiant has their summer event series going on, which is called Book of Death. I did their event series last summer. Armor Hunters, the second one I've done for them. And starting in November, I'm going to do Wrath of the Eternal Warrior, which is a new series for Valiant. And then I actually have my first children's novel. It just came out in June. It's called Miles Taylor and the Golden Cape, Attack of the Alien Horde. It's the first book in a series about a kid who gets I'm going to get the book so I can show it to you. But it's about a kid who gets a cape that turns him into a superhero. But sometimes it works, but sometimes it doesn't. That's part of the mystery of the book. The book actually changes back and forth between comics and prose.
Oh, cool.
So like when the cape works and he turns into a hero, it turns into a comic.
Oh, that's cool.
And at other times when he's not a superhero, it's prose. So that's my first children's novel that I've done, and it's been a lot of fun to work on. So.
Well, Robert, I can't let you out of here. I've been thinking this question ever since we were talking about surrogates. Before I let you go, I got one more question.
Lay it on me.
How was it meeting Bruce Willis? Because I've heard mixed things about him.
Uh, I call him Brucey. You call him Mr. Willis. But
Okay.
as
Okay.
far as what it was like meeting him, like I met him for like 20 seconds, dude.
I'm
Like
with,
the first time
okay.
we went
Okay.
to the set to go see filming, me and Britt Welderly went to the set. I'd never been to one before. I wanted to go see what it was like when they make a movie. And we walked in, and they were in the middle of a take. And as soon as the take was over, they brought him over to us, and they introduced us to Bruce Willis as these two guys are the reason why everybody's here. And he was super nice, and he said, hey, and we shook hands, and we talked for a couple seconds. And I saw him at the premiere, and he was in his little velvet roped off area, and he invited me to come back and sit with him, which I knew he didn't mean, so I didn't do it. And other than that, the most interesting thing about the set to me was meeting like the set builders and the prop guys and like all the blue collar people. Like I worked in restaurants a lot growing up, so I went inside the catering truck and just watched them cook lunch one day because I was amazed that they could make this really high level food for 400 people all at the same time in this converted mobile home, basically. And so I'm sitting there in the kitchen watching these guys cook, and they were like, "What are you doing in here, dude?" And I was like, "I just want to see how you guys are doing this." Like, it was interesting to me. So those were all the things about the movie that I really enjoyed.
Was he wearing that? I hate to say it, but was he wearing kind of that god awful wig when he came up to you on set?
Yeah, I mean, I saw a few different scenes that they shot. So in some of them he was, and
Yeah.
some of them he wasn't, because they don't shoot the movie in order. I never even knew this, right? Like
Yeah.
they shoot it all out of order in different sections. And so I saw both scenes.
That's great.
I saw him looking both ways. Yeah.
That's really cool, Robert. Well, Mr. Robert Venditti, thank you for being on it, and we'll let you run, man, and enjoy the evening with your family, and hopefully we'll talk to you very soon.
All right, I appreciate it, guys. Y'all take care.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye, Rob.
Thank you,
Bye.
Robert.
Well, that was fun.
That was awesome.
We didn't get enough time. I want to talk more Green Lantern and Flash. I feel like we never get enough time. There's never enough time.
I'm
There's never-
sorry if I bogged us down on the surrogates. Casey.
Yeah, all that hot surrogate talk. People love to hear about surrogates.
I had more questions about surrogates because he's like continuing the story of surrogates, like a whole 30-year span of what's going on with those characters.
Unfortunately, to our audience, he kind of really needed to go by 10 Eastern, so that's about 5 minutes from now. So we were very gracious to have him on, so we wanted to kind of accommodate him, and that was not a problem. Thank you again, Robert, for being on. So let's get to Week in Geek.
Hold on. How about we give away some New York Comic Con tickets first?
Wow, that's even better. Okay, that will save some.
I got to read a script real fast.
Sorry. Go ahead, Casey.
No, you're fine. So now for your chance to win 3-day passes to New York Comic Con. We're taking part in Pete's Basement Comic Book Podcast Scavenger Hunt. The way it works is we are about to give you a trivia question. So you're going to go to petesbasement.com/NYCC giveaway and fill in your answer on the entry form. If you are correct, that gets you 5 entries to win the tickets. On their form, you will see links to all the other podcasts participating. Click the links and listen to each podcast to find another trivia question worth 5 more entries to win the NYCC tickets. Contest is on September 17th. No purchase necessary. Terms and conditions apply. Go to petesbasement.com for details. And now your trivia question. So are you guys ready for your trivia question? Here it comes.
We're not allowed to answer.
No, you can't. Lips sealed, please. In the comic book arc. Wait, no, hold on. Shit, I forgot my own trivia question. Here we go. Who took over Peter Parker's brain to become the Superior Spider-Man? That is your trivia question, everybody. Once again, who took over Peter Parker's brain to become the Superior Spider-Man? Good luck to everyone, and winners will be announced live on Pete Basement's Periscope broadcast on September 17th at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. On with the show!
Woo!
All right, Natalie, what has been going on in your Week in Geek? Let's start with you.
Oh my gosh, you guys, I just came back from PAX Prime in Seattle. It's a huge video game conference. And as you probably can hear in my voice, I lost my voice talking to so many amazing people. I was working with Wargaming, which is a fantastic company. I mean, they give away so much shit at their booth, you guys. They love their fans, and every hour they had a giveaway. It was fantastic. But I got to see the new Mario Maker. It's basically, you can play any version of Mario Brothers, and you can change the scene and change the level by adding characters, subtracting characters, adding different parts of the game. It was fantastic. Wargaming also announced that they're doing Masters of Orion, which was an original 1992 game they acquired the rights for. They're remaking it. People couldn't stop asking questions about it. So a lot of fun news, a lot of funny video games coming out of PAX.
And I think Mario Makers comes out September the 11th. So
yeah, soon.
That's very soon. Now, is that the Wii U that Mario Maker is going to be on, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, I'm not a video. I just got a PS4, but definitely not my area of expertise in geekdom. So that's cool. I saw the ads for it on TV, and very nostalgic while at the same time being new. Mario Maker looks like a cool game. So, all right,
I think my favorite part about it was you can actually create a level to play itself. So you can say, Mario's going to jump here, and it will show you the arc that he's going to jump. So you can create a moving bar or something for him to land on with coins, so you can see the trajectory of where he's going.
As long as I don't have to create it, because I'm a lazy gamer. That's why I like sports games and shooters. Like, if I had to do a lot of work, I'm like, this is a job. This is tedious. I would rather just sit here and read a comic or watch a movie or something. But I think you have the option to play other people's maps or to create your own. So it's kind of up to you what you want to do with it. So that's pretty cool.
It is, and you can even change. Like, instead of getting a flower pot here, you can get a tail. You can turn into a different character. It's really a lot of fun.
All right, so that's Mario Maker on the Wii U, available on the 11th of September this year.
Natalie, what was your favorite thing out of PAX? What was the favorite thing you did?
My favorite thing I did?
Yeah.
I recently have gotten into Minecraft, and Minecraft had a huge Minecraft booth that looked like a big giant house, and it was all in those little blocks. It had creepers on it. They had a fireplace. I think that was one of my favorite things.
Minecraft,
Cool.
huh? Is this Mattel's fault?
Maybe.
A lot of things are Mattel's fault.
I'm actually really excited for this Masters of Orion video game that Wargaming announced. It's a turn-based game where you have to take over the galaxy. Sounds right up my alley.
They should have named it Star Wars something. That would have been much better.
Yeah, then I would have bought it. Now I'm not going to buy it. That's for sure. Then they could have released it tonight for Force Friday. But
well, I think that copyright's already taken by someone.
Yeah, unfortunately. Damn you, EA. All right, Casey, what about you? What have you been reading?
Hold on. Now, are you done, Nat? Was that all you did?
I'm sorry, Nat.
Yeah, no, that's what's really big going on in the geek world for me, is just coming home from PAX.
Fun. I'm jealous. I wanted to go to PAX. How did you go to PAX? You just decided to go?
No, I worked with Wargaming. I went
sorry.
last year with them.
Fun. You have the funnest jobs.
I try.
Don't have kids. They'll ruin it all.
Thanks.
Just a tip. Okay, my turn now? Are we doing me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I am going to be short because I only read 2 comics this week because I've been super busy with work and stuff. Ugh, boring. So I read Rick Remender's Hail Hydra, which I love to death. It saddens me reading these books because they're Rick Remender's kind of last Marvel works for a while. He's not really putting out anything new after Hail Hydra's done, and he's only really going to do Deadly Science and some other stuff, or Deadly Science, Deadly Class and Black Science. So I'm going to miss Rick Remender, so this is kind of like a bittersweet moment, but it's a lot of fun. I always say his books are not fun. They're very tragic and heartbreaking. And this book is no different. Very violent, a lot of death and destruction. and some of the people, your favorite people, die horrible, horrific deaths. So that's Rick Remender in a nutshell, and that's Hail Hydra, issue 2 in a nutshell. I really, really liked it. It's probably one of my favorite Secret Wars books going on right now, and it stars Steve Rogers' son, Ian, who he like rescued from Dimension Z. It's all very complicated, so if you don't know who Ian is, you're gonna have no idea what this book is about.
He becomes Nomad, right? He becomes Nomad.
Yeah, he's Nomad now. Yeah, he's Nomad in this book, and he's like this place. So he's the 616 Nomad in a battle world area where Hydra has like taken over everything and won, basically. So it's all very weird for him. Because if you don't know who Ian is, oh my god, I mean, this is how deep the story is. So back like 3 years ago, Rick Remender started writing a Captain America book where he like sent Captain America to this dimension that was ruled by Armin Zola. Armin Zola created a clone of like basically trying to recreate Captain America. So he created all these kid clones. Captain America saves one, raises him as his own in this dimension, and then he raises him to like adulthood. They eventually get out of the dimension and find out time has not passed in the present. So they've been in this dimension for like 20 years, and then they come back to regular 616 Marvel, and it's been like a day or whatever. So that kind of catches you up on that whole story and why Ian and Nomad exists. So yeah, so now Ian is now in this like Hydra world and like kind of freaking out because Zola has won, and everything he fought for in Dimension Z is kind of like all the things that he would have been if Captain America didn't save him in Dimension Z, he's seeing come to fruition. So it's cool. But it's like a deep story. So like yeah, if you haven't read all that shit, you're not gonna have any idea what's going on. I know, right? It was intense. I feel winded just talking about it.
That was the most comic booky description synopsis like ever. I actually read those in trade, and you think, damn, we're like the only people who get this kind of storytelling. It's so just inherent to you having prior knowledge.
But it's so good too, and it's a really genius device by Rick Remender because like, what else are you gonna do with Captain America? You know what I mean? Like, yeah. He's been around for so long. He's so underpowered compared to all the other heroes that he has to hang out with. Like, what are you gonna do with him? Let's take him off and like separate him completely and put him in this weird like place for 100 years or whatever, 20, 30 years, however old Ian is now. I also read Deadpool versus Thanos #1, which I loved to death. Once again, very comic booky. So this book takes place before Secret Wars, before the Marvel Now Deadpool.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so you have to, when you're reading it, you have to have that Deadpool in mind. But once you kind of get in that zone, it makes a lot of sense. It's very well written. It's a lot of fun. It's super funny. Just the idea of Deadpool and Thanos like hanging out and meeting, even though they both like, it kind of weird. It seems weird that they haven't like hung out before because they both share love of the Mistress of Death. So like they would have crossed paths at some point, it seems, since they're both fucking us, the Grim Reaper. But so that's basically the crux of the story is like something's happened to Death and they have to like come together and save her. I don't know. It's all very weird. I don't know. Comic books are strange, people. I don't know what to tell you. So I really enjoyed it though. It's very Deadpool-y. The Deadpool dialogue is on par with most of his stuff. A lot of fun cameos. There's a great Cable bit in there. There's a great bit with a goat in there. So if you're looking for a good funny book, I recommend Deadpool vs. Thanos. And it's not like tied into Secret Wars at all, so you can completely like separate yourself from it. One book I haven't read yet, but I wanted to mention because I know Natalie is a fan and she's on, is Figment 2 #1.
Ooh, I was just about to read that.
I was gonna say if you haven't picked this up yet, go pick it up because I think Figment 1 is a huge collector's item now because no one like they made very few of those and everyone wanted it. So I think and I think the same is going to happen with this one. There were only like 2 or 3 copies at my shop. So I was happy to be able to grab one. So I'm looking forward to that because we all love Disney so much. Also have Thor's and Midnighter 2 in my stack left to read for this week. All right, I'm done.
I did a lot of geeky stuff this week, believe it or not. So I'm not gonna get into all of it because I had a backlog. I was trying to catch up with some stuff, but there's two things I wanted to hit on. One was Batman number 43. So you had Casey, you probably read this one, Scott Snyder's Batman 43, the
Oh yeah.
introduction of Mr. Bloom.
Yep. I've read every Batman since day one, and that's one comic I always read the day I get it, just because I love it so much. So yeah, I'm caught up on all my Batmans.
Yeah, that's been a historic run by Snyder on Batman, and I've been on there too since day one. But it's very hard to introduce a new, impactful, meaningful villain into the Batman mythos. I mean, Hush did it for sure. Arkham Knight, you could argue, maybe kind of did it, maybe didn't. But Mr. Bloom's an intriguing character. First of all, aesthetically, he looks different. He kind of reminds me of a mix of the Scarecrow and, I don't know, this is going to sound weird, but the mix of a Scarecrow, but from a size standpoint, a Solomon Grundy. Maybe he's not quite that big, but there's just something intriguing about him. He leaves his calling card everywhere, his little Bloom logo, and obviously he's not afraid of the other big bads in Gotham. I just love how he basically...
I love that scene so much when he's trying to sell
Yeah.
the Blooms to like the Penguin and stuff. Oh, that's so great.
That's just a great scene because here you have one of the most iconic villains in Batman, in DC, in the Penguin and all his gangsters, and you have this relatively unknown, and he just kind of, I'm not going to spoil what happens, but how he handles them is quite intriguing and kind of a jaw dropper, even for somebody who's a lone Batman fan. You know what it kind of reminded me of, Casey? Whenever the Joker walks into the mob bosses in The Dark Knight with the pencil trick. Like, this was the equivalent to that.
It's that exact same scene, and it's a great way to introduce like a new villain and show you like this is why you should be scared of this guy. Like, if these people are scared of this guy, you should be scared of this guy. And yeah, it does that perfectly. And I really am loving Snyder's arc on Batman, especially this kind of Jim Gordon Batman. It's really it's very cool.
Yeah, and they've really changed the coloring up. Like, Capullo's art it hasn't changed drastically, but it definitely does have a different tone since we've went to the Jim Gordon Batman.
I think it's definitely gotten better. Like, I think if you go back to like the few first issues of Batman, like the zeros, the 1, 2, and 3s, and those, and then you go back to these issues, I think you'll see his line work and kind of his detail has really like exceeded above and beyond. Like the arc before, oh my gosh, the Joker arc where they died or whatever at the end.
Yeah,
like the art and no. The last Endgame.
Oh, Endgame. Okay.
Endgame. Art on that book was just fucking tremendous, and I really just hope that Greg and Scott really never come off this book. I know it's going to happen eventually.
It's going to be 52 issues, I bet. I bet it's going to end at 52. That's the rumor I'm hearing.
And then Azzarello's going to step in.
We'll see what happens. I don't know.
I saw Azzarello. I saw Azzarello somewhere, and I asked him, and he vehemently denied it. He said, No. I'm not taking over. I said, okay, buddy. All right.
That's funny because when I talked to James Tinney, and he said the exact same thing. He said, there's no way I'm taking over this book. A lot of people think it's the natural progression, but he said he's a more compliment to Scott as opposed to a replacement. Like, if he did it, it would be too much like Snyder's Batman. So They need to go in kind of a different direction. But hopefully he's just such a great run that that's not for a long time. But yeah, Mr. Bloom's awesome. Jim Gordon Batman's awesome. I love the mech suit. I love the blimp. What a great callback to kind of the animated series, that opening scene. And I just like how there's those little nods and touches. Like, Snyder's so good at that. So, and another thing I checked out, and I'm an episode behind, but it's Fear the Walking Dead, the first episode. Did you see this?
I haven't, but I have not heard good things, and I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure I'm going to check it out. I don't think I'm going to do it.
Well,
I heard it's too slow. Like, they're 2 episodes in, and nothing's happened yet, and it's just like moving at a zombie crawl. So I don't see why. Like, I have no reason. Like, I have better things to do with my life than watch another zombie show.
There you go, Casey. But I know I do, like, you really do have to limit that time, especially when you work, you read comics, you play video games, you have a wife, you have a life, whatever. But I will say that Kim Dickens is the main actress. She's such a talented actress that I'm at least going to check out the next 2 or so episodes. And I really like, it's just such a different group. Like, these are school teachers, a school counselor. I feel like I'm more kind of in the civilian's mind as opposed to, yeah, Rick was a civilian, but he was law enforcement. So it's just kind of cool to see somebody who's maybe not armed and dangerous deal with this. So I'll definitely check out the next few episodes. But besides that, I watched Hard Knocks on HBO, and I don't think y'all want to hear about that. So if y'all want to, we can get into news. And there's one thing. Okay,
before we go to news, we're doing a little thing where we're kind of celebrating Spider-Man this month for Spider Timber. Spider Timber? I think that's how you say it. So we've partnered with all these other websites. Huh? What? Spider Timber. Spider Timber. That's right.
Spider Timber. Yes, September now.
Yeah. So we've been partnering with all these websites, and we're going to be doing a bunch of Spider-Man themed articles and podcasts and that kind of thing. So to kind of kick it off, since today's only the 2nd or whatever. I didn't realize it was only the 2nd. I thought we were way more into September than we are. I wanted to kind of talk to you guys and ask you, what is your favorite Spider-Man story?
Natalie, you take it first.
Oh, I don't have to think about it.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, I have one then.
Okay, go.
Alright, mine is the Ultimate Spider-Man story arc with Venom, where Eddie Brock and Peter were actually childhood friends, and their fathers had worked on the kind of symbiote formula together. Like, I thought it added a much more personal state to that whole story. I mean, I love the classic meathead reporter Eddie Brock, but to have that tie-in to Peter's parents and that May knew Eddie as a kid, I really love that story arc by Bendis and Baglier, and they kind of tried to go for something like that in The Amazing Spider-Man. You could tell they were maybe kind of pushing towards something like that, but yeah, that was never going to, unfortunately, we never got to see that come to fruition, so that's probably mine.
Yeah, I wonder if that movie would have served better if they kind of went more for that arc as opposed to the Green Goblin for Harry.
Yeah. It was basically that same dynamic, right, that he had with Dean DeHaan in the second movie. It's just instead of Goblin, he was Venom. And I think it would have been better, first of all, because people are goblined out at this point.
Right.
Yeah. I haven't read a lot of Spider-Man, but what I have read recently was his involvement in Civil War. I tried to pick up all the Civil War comics and get really caught up on that. So just to see kind of his point of view and his perspective during the Civil War storyline, I found was really interesting.
Yeah, I think his Civil War books are probably the best tie-ins because he's so integral to the plot line. Overall, yeah, I think that's an excellent choice, and probably you're right. I mean, I think you're right, and it's probably one of his biggest moments in comics is his whole Civil War arc and what happens to him and how he has to deal with that. And then it's all wiped away by the devil.
If not for that, it would probably arguably be the most important part, but they wiped it away.
Yeah, well, I mean, Gwen Stacy, I think, is synonymous with Spider-Man. I think if you ask the mainstream audience, or maybe not, if you ask the mainstream comic book person what their iconic Spider-Man story is, everyone will say Gwen Stacy. Which I think is true, but I mean, that comic is so old at this point. I think if you went back and tried to read it, you would have a really difficult time. I mean, we're talking word bubbles that take up entire pages, and it's just a ton of like dialogue. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that's a great choice, Natalie, and it's going to be interesting to see how they deal with that dynamic in the movie. Because I think a lot of people suspect that he will have a big part in the movie. I just don't think it will be I don't think it'll be anything remotely similar to what happened to him in the comic because he's not established like that in the movie universe. So
exactly.
And just to go, I have just a comment about. Remember those promotional pictures that came out this week or last week. Was it last week the Civil War ones?
With the new outfits and things, like the new
Right.
Hawkeye outfit. Yeah.
So there was a big hubbubaloo because Scarlet Witch and Spider-Man were missing from those. I did a little research, and I think I found out why. I think it's because they're promotional images, and the deal with Marvel states and the other studios says they can't use certain characters for promotional use. So, and Spider-Man and Scarlet Witch fall under that banner because they're owned by different studios.
Wow.
So I think that's why they're missing. So I don't think people should be making speculations about why they're not in those promotional videos, like Scarlet Witch dying or whatever. They're missing because they can't use them like legally. So
I understand Scarlet Witch with Fox, but considering that Sony and Marvel have worked out a deal, that surprises me. So does that mean that Spider-Man can't be on a Civil War movie poster?
I don't think so. No, I think the poster is okay. I think it strictly deals with like merchandising. So like toys, like the toys will technically I think the toys would have to be different. So like if like I think this is another reason why we didn't see Scarlet Witch toys. If Marvel can't make a Scarlet Witch toy, I think Fox has to make a Scarlet Witch toy.
Hot
Marvel
Toys did it.
Marvel can't make a Spider-Man toy. I think another company has to make a Spider-Man toy, or they have to approve it to be made. Like there has to be some kind of back and forth. So I think there's some kind of deal in there where like promotional stuff falls into that banner as well. So yeah, I don't think you would see like you're not gonna see Spider-Man on like a McDonald's cup or something, or at least.
Let's just be honest. When it comes to trailers and photographs, Marvel doesn't like to release anything too early in the game. They like to keep it really close to their chest. Like we didn't see pictures of Vision until Age of Ultron was upon us.
Yeah, like a week or it's like 2 weeks out or something.
And we all knew that he was going to be a big part of the movie or a part of the movie. And what was it, like 3 weeks prior to the movie? All of a sudden, we were like, "Oh, this is what Vision looks like," because a toy was released.
Right, and I think a lot of things with Spider-Man 2 is he will have multiple costumes, and I bet you they're a little worried about the first costume. Because I think there's already been some backlash about like what it's rumored to look like, so I think that they're maybe holding back for that reason too. That they don't want to have this huge like backlash against Spider-Man's new costume.
Yeah.
I will worry about this after Star Wars comes out.
Yeah, right. Like who cares?
That's when I will worry about this.
One movie at a time.
Did you hear that Star Wars is supposed to make 60? They think it's going to make 65. No, not 65. $650 million opening weekend worldwide.
I also heard. Here's another number for you. They think they're going to make $5 billion with a B off of merchandise sales, toys, posters, costumes.
No doubt.
I mean, $1 billion off of merch.
Will is not here tonight because he is standing in line right now for Star Wars.
And so is my co-host for the Collecting Podcast, who begged me to go. He took the day off of work tomorrow, and unfortunately I could not do that. So he is out there right now, and we're going to have coverage of that on the Collecting Pod. But did you guys see the crazy BB-8 Best Buy remote control thing that hit the internet today? It's $150.
No, but they teased that coming out a couple of places. They're like, dude, if you think that the actual prop is crazy, wait till you see the merchandise that we have for this thing coming out. So,
I'm telling you, dude, it was a legit movie prop. Like the thing can do a hologram of your face. You can use your iPhone to move it around. Like you can look it up on theverge.com. There's two kind of remote control versions of this. There's the $80 one at Target, which is kind of just going to be your cheaper one, right? And then a $150 one at Best Buy, which is your nice like movie prop quality one that has an app with your iPhone or your Android device that you can control BB-8, not 88 with, and it's just, God, I want one of these so bad. Like, talking to a friend today, I want one. I don't know why I need one, but
it's like wanting to have an R2 unit. You just want one. There's no need for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to justify dropping $150 on a spear droid, so I don't know. Are you gonna pick it? How about you guys? Since it is Force Friday, are y'all gonna pick up anything from the new movie? Like, is there one or two things? I know Casey, you had mentioned some stuff.
Yeah, hold on before I go. My favorite Spider-Man story is Superior Spider-Man. All right. Yes,
Good choice.
Put it in real fast.
I want the Kylo Ren lightsaber. I don't care if it's the cool FX one or the plastic one. I really don't care. I just want it. And I want a Black Series Stormtrooper, which probably is going to be the harder one of the two to get. But that's really all that I care about.
Yeah.
Those.
What about you, Natalie?
Honestly, I think I'm going to wait till I see the movie.
Oh, you can't do that. You just need to invest your money, and then the main character dies like Darth Maul did in Episode 1. You're like, ah, crap. So.
I mean, I haven't seen any of the images for what merch they were releasing, so I'm not sure yet. Like we were talking earlier, I don't really collect things because I know that if I started, I would have to continue. So
yeah. It's a bad thing to continue. I really only want two things. I want a Kylo Ren hot toy, which is going up for pre-order at midnight at sideshowtoy.com. I have some rewards points. I want to get that, and I really want a Drew Struzan Star Wars poster. I know he did the D23 poster, but I'm still holding out hope he's going to do the main poster. So this is the guy that did all the Star Wars, Back to the Future, Indiana Jones posters. He's been retired for a long time, and he's come out of retirement to do a teaser, so I'm hoping he'll do the one with the credits on it.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of Star Wars stuff. All right, Brad, it's time to wrap it up.
Okay, unfortunately, yes it is. It is that time once again. So, how about we end with a recommendation? Anything in the world of geek that you recommend the good people check out this week, and then just tell us where we can find more of you. What about you, Natalie? Where can we find more of you, and do you got a recommendation for us this week?
I don't have a recommendation. My recommendations were from PAX, so probably Mario Maker. Check that out.
That's a good recommendation.
The new Tomb Raider video game is coming out. That'll be cool. But you can find me at Twitter at Princess Natkins or on YouTube at Geek Out Your Workout. Some new nerdy workout videos are coming your way.
And Natalie, thank you for being on with us again. It's good to have you on since the 100th
it's so good to be
episode.
here. I'm glad my schedule let me do it.
Me too. All right, Casey, what about you and your cat there?
It's not my cat. It's my mom-in-law's cat. I think she's gonna attack me any minute now. I recommend Superior Spider-Man. I didn't get to talk about it enough. I love Superior Spider-Man. It's my favorite Spider-Man comic of recent memory, and I read it as much as I can whenever I have a free moment. I just love it so much. If you are not a Spider-Man fan, that comic might make you one. So please go check it out. And you can find me at The Comics Kid on Twitter, at GWW Capes Crew, and at Geeks with Wives. And you guys should all be visiting geekswithwives.com every single day because there's amazing things happening there all the fucking time. I just can't even tell you how awesome it is. So please go check it out.
All right, thank you, Casey. As for me, you can find me on Twitter at @TheRealBradBell, REEL Brad Bell, on GeeksWithWives.com. I wrote kind of a little bit of a retrospective tribute to Wes Craven, the famous horror director behind Nightmare on Elm Street and Scream, two franchises I love. That's up in the entertainment section on GeeksWithWives.com. My recommendation is participate in Force Friday. With Star Wars, the toys are as big as the movies. Even if you buy one thing, even if it's a Star Wars cup, get out there. This is a I take that back. It's not a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but it'll be
It's going to happen every year now, Brad, so we get plenty of fucking Star Wars.
But this is going to be the first time it has, like, legit return. So I think this will be a little different than those that follow by the time we get burnt out on Star Wars. So participate in Force Friday. Listen to the Collecting Pod. That's all we're going to talk about this month. It'll probably be out within the next 10 days. So I look forward to that. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much to our guest, Robert Venditti. Thank you so much to Warner Brothers DC for being so gracious and nice to me behind the scenes and helping me set up that interview and helping Casey get some contacts and interviews at San Diego Comic-Con as well. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. And until next time, we will catch you on the geek side.